week on Prepping 2.0.
Prepping for mental health, and because you don't know who else has prepped.
If people don't think that the outlaw clubs, the motorcycle clubs, and the organized crime networks and the cartels aren't preppers, they're fooling themselves.
When disaster strikes, will you be prepared? This is Prepping 2.0 with authors and prepping experts Glenn Tate and Shelby Gallagher.
Online at prepping2-0.com.
Get ready. Prepping 2.0 coming in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everyone, to Prepping 2.0. This is one of your hosts, Shelby Gallagher, joined by my co-host in life and co-host on the show, Glenn Tate. Hi, Glenn.
Hello, hello. Hey, this is going to be fun. This is a great thing because we got to talk to a fellow author, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, do I?
No. So one of the things we do talk about,
yes,
Glenn,
is the top 100 things that go the quickest in a crisis, and this is based on the Bosnia experience, and a bunch of folks that lived through that wrote down the top 100 things. And today's, which is 93 off the top of my head, is booze, hooch, the sauce. Yes, beer, wine, hard liquor. It is something that never goes out of style. People need it, especially when times are bad. It is an amazing comfort. It is a sense of normalcy. And it goes for a lot of money. You can't find it as things are falling apart, and it is tremendous barter material. We are often asked the question, should I buy a bunch of booze that I'm not going to drink necessarily, either because people don't drink or they don't drink that much? Should I stockpile booze?
Yes.
And the answer, I think, is yes. We got the question last week, should I stockpile cigarettes? And we said, no, I don't think so. They don't store as well. Anyway, top 100 things. Booze, strongly consider it, even if you don't drink a lot. Yes, sirree. Well, this is the point in the show in which we say, lurkers. Lurkers come out of the shadows. What do we mean by that? Well, there are a whole bunch of you fine folks who listen on the radio and listen on the interwebs and the YouTubes and the Rumbles and the iTunes, blah, blah, blah. You listen and you're not Patreons, and that's cool. We like having you listen. That's why we do the show, is to get information out. But you're missing out on a ton of stuff. You're missing out on the after shows. We're going to be having an after show with our guest this evening, and we don't plan it this way, but a lot of the good stuff happens in the after show. The after show is exclusively for Patreons after the regular show's over. There's a bunch more stuff you get as a Patreon, especially at the $5 a month and up level, like the video bonus shows, which are just blistering and taking off and going bananas, and they're, as the name implies, video bonus shows. Anyway, consider it. Go to prepping2-0.com. There's a big reddish-orange thing that says Patreon. Click it. See if it's for you. Sure hope it is, because you're missing a lot being a lurker out in the shadows.
What if somebody emails you and says, hey, Glenn, I'm no longer a lurker? What could happen?
Well, here's what will happen if you say I was a lurker and you put lurker in the subject line, because that's the only way I can manage the 100 emails a day I get based on a true story. And I will then flag it. And if you give me your address and you say I was a lurker, we're going to send you a sticker pack. That's why I need your address. And it only works if you send me your address, because I've tried walking all over the country with a bag of stickers finding people. It is ineffective.
It's not good.
A poor use of time. So need your address. Yeah, lurkers. If you send me an email, you're going to get free stuff, free stickers. It's fun, and it's our way of encouraging people to come out of the shadows.
And that's Glenn Tate 123@gmail.com. So I want to stop for just a second and mention one of our awesome sponsors, EMP Shield. Really great folks over there. They have a device that if you hook it into your home or hook it into your car, it will protect your home or car from an EMP or a coronal mass ejection.
CME. We've been working every week. We get it was like coronal was like 2 weeks ago, and then the mass. And then the ejection thing. And that's like a big solar flare.
I keep wanting to say emission, and I know that's not it.
Not at all. No, not a mission. It's a mass.
It's a big thing.
Yes.
All right. So if you go to our website at prepping2-0.com, go to Friends and Affiliates, click on EMP Shield, and if you use the coupon code Prepping 2.0 at checkout, you get $50 off. That's awesome.
This is good stuff. Well, folks, I wanted to let you know a little bit about our guest, Austin Chambers. He is a Seattle area federal employee. We're going to be vague. And he's also a Navy veteran. And his book series is called Cascadia Fallen. And I would like to welcome Austin to the show. Welcome, Austin. Thank you for being on.
Hey, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. You guys have a lot of big name guests, and I feel honored to be asked. So thank you.
Well, we're glad to have you. And just so everybody knows, we have got to know Austin and his wife a little bit. Since he's in the Pacific Northwest area, and so are we kind of run into him a lot at prepper expos and things like that.
And we just saw him recently at an author event, which is great.
Author event, yeah. And so we said, hey, we got to get you on the show. And he was kind enough to come on the show. So we greatly appreciate that. Austin, why did you write the Cascadia Fallen series?
Okay. Well, the obvious itch was just because I've always wanted to write a book. A lot of people say that, but hardly anyone ever checks that off the bucket list. But EMPs have been kind of done to death, right? And once guys like you go and kind of put down awesome series about economic collapse, I don't know if I could reinvent that wheel. I was really looking for something that might drive 90 or 95% of the same preparedness type stuff, but in a new vehicle, right? So so I've been working in a naval shipyard that specializes in working on carriers and submarines for most of my career. And in 2001, and you guys probably lived up around Shelby, was probably down in Oregon. But we had a 6.8 earthquake up here, probably right centered under Glenn's old place. But
it was
a deep one, relatively medium depth, I think. So it wasn't as bad as it could have been. But I was working as a scaffold builder at the time. I've been in management most of the time since.
Goodness.
But, yeah. And I wrote a big scaffold during this earthquake.
Oh, scares me just hearing about it.
So what was that like?
And I was in a dry dock, right, next to an old submarine that we were recycling. And my first thought after things had calmed down and we'd evacuated the dry dock and we spent the rest of the day inspecting these things was, what if that caisson had gone, which is the big metal plug at the end of a dry dock that keeps the ocean out. And so I spent the rest of my career wondering if I was going to turn into a red stain on the end of the dry dock after the next earthquake, right? And so that had always been in the back of my mind. And I have a background, a former firefighter and EMT, emergency management training and stuff. And so when I decided to check that bucket list and write books, the earthquake volcano thing kind of seemed like a natural way to go.
It's interesting. I'm thinking about a recent interview we did with Charlie Hogwood. Hogwood, am I saying that? Hogwood. Emergency management. There's a running theme here.
Absolutely. And I was just going to say, if Shelby's enunciation is not its usual very crisp self, it's because we're taping this in the evening and she is not jacked up to the gills on Minutemen Coffee with the I Miss America blend, which is awesome. And you can find out more about it on prepping2-0.com.
Well, and please do go do that. Yes, I do taper off after 3 p.m. because it helps me because I need to sleep at night. But I do want to say, first of all, be sure to use the coupon code I Miss America and get 15% off. And they are round the clock roasting coffee right now. They are so busy, which is awesome. Great folks over there. I encourage you to check them out. So,
but seriously, caffeine makes the elucidation and pronunciation a little better. I suffer from this problem too, so I'm not casting aspersions, pointing fingers. I'm not casting fingers because I don't even know what that is. So
all right,
don't do it. Next question. So, Austin, give us an overview of the series, how many books it is, what storylines, those sorts of things, so people can decide if it's something they want to spend a little bit of their money and some of their time either reading or listening to.
Okay, so the primary plot and storyline centers around a gun range, and I chose some fictional names for the local area. I kind of took Kitsap County, which is where I live. The old county name for it used to be Slaughter, so I just reverted back to that. And I basically, as a new author, wanted to reserve authors' creativity there. If you change names up, if you write stuff too realistically and then you're off by where a landmark is, people get mad, right?
So,
yes, they do.
Yeah. So as a newbie, I wanted to do some fictional stuff. And also I wrote about a fictional shipyard just because I was a little bit nervous about what they might think, right? So the primary plot is around this gun range and the guy who kind of is the lead instructor there, and he's the executive officer. And then there's several subplots, and one of those is his son who works down at the shipyard. And of course, there's some catastrophes there that are kind of based on my initial fears from that real earthquake 19 years ago. There's other subplots. I wanted to get lots of dynamic here, so I have the polar opposites that have to work together in the form of a narcissistic doctor and a young sailor that are trying to make their way back from SeaTac Airport to this side of the water. And then there's the guy who's not a prepper who has to go to Seattle because his kids are on a field trip that day. So he's totally out of his element trying to get over to Seattle without any, prepper knowledge or anything. But the main thing is this gun range. They all the members just start flocking to it, and they want to. It becomes a mutual assistance group, almost by proxy, because everyone just kind of naturally went there, and it's got the space. It's defendable, and some of the people there were preparedness minded already. So, but really, as I was writing this book, I was about halfway through the first draft when I realized I hadn't really come up with a main antagonist yet for the book or the series. And I was kind of treating the disasters, which in essence, there's a teaser earthquake in chapter 1, but the big one happens in chapter 5, and that's a 9.0 subduction zone earthquake that triggers Mount Rainier into erupting, and that causes tsunami. So it just basically completely annihilates the Northwest and wrecks infrastructure for hundreds of miles, which is all probably very realistic. But I didn't have an antagonist, and so when I finally solved that problem, the earthquakes and the volcano disasters, they just became the vehicle to tell the real story.
Yep.
Which is what happens when the two-legged wolves come out to play.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyhow, book 1, book 2. So book 1, I have about 5 or 6 plots there involving 7 or 8 characters. And then in book 2, the main characters continue on, but I brought in some new ones and rolled out some of the old ones into non-point of view characters. But it's the same thing. I keep the buddy dynamics going. I have stories where you have the pair of buddies that can practically speak for each other, that work so well together, but then some of them have a falling out, right? And then I have another polar opposites that kind of starts at the end of book 2 and carries into book 3. But book 1 ends off with the introduction to both the main antagonist for 1 and 2, which is kind of just a local power hungry, politician. And then
that's not fiction.
Are those common? I have not heard of such things.
Yeah, it's just there's a mythological unicorn up here in the Northwest, right?
Yeah, really. Jeez.
But I saw, I love how you guys, and I can't remember if it was Sean Swansboro or whoever had come up with that term, Californication.
Oh, that wasn't Sean. Sean Swanson came up with cartelification.
Okay, that's the one. Because
cartelification, it's a great word.
I was finishing draft 1 for book 1. It was about 2 years ago. I said, I got to set up a series antagonist that gets beyond this local government person. And I have the cartel slip in under the radar. And my point behind this whole trilogy, and it could have been 8 or 10 books after the fact, but I'd announced it as a trilogy way back at the beginning before I really knew what I was doing. Yeah. But is this: if people don't think that the outlaw clubs, the motorcycle clubs, and the organized crime networks and the cartels aren't preppers, they're fooling themselves.
Yep.
So when that word came up to explain exactly what I had started setting up at the end of book 1, and it carries through book 2 and book 3, where basically the law enforcement and the National Guard just completely dissolve and disappear, and the community has to stand up and kind of fight back against these guys.
Wow.
Well, and I'm listening to this and I'm hearing terms, antagonist, protagonist, polar opposite personality types. And I'm thinking to myself, and I mean this sincerely, it seems like you studied what novels are about and how they work, because these terms, and while I understand them and I think it makes a great story, it's very clear what you're saying, the terms you're using sounds like they're thought out. And I know that Shelby and I just started writing about people we knew, and we started projecting into the future what we thought people would do. Sounds like you put like some structure and some thought into this.
He actually used his high school education in writing.
Whoa.
Right.
I mean,
Right, that's back when high schools had education.
Exactly.
that's right. I mean, so did you, for lack of a better term, study the art of novel writing, or did these terms come up thereafter? I mean, was it intentional to have a protagonist? Was it intentional to have polar opposites? You know, was that in an outline somewhere, or did it just happen?
So I've always kind of been, okay at writing. I'm the guy that would get pegged for writing the roast or whatever for the guy retiring at work so well that I almost got in trouble with EEO a couple of times.
Oops.
But, I could write technical documents when I was in college, and then I went back to college after the Navy in the mid-'90s. And in English 101, that teacher kept using my stuff as an example. So I knew I had something there. I was a heavy reader back in the military and for several years after. Once my kids got old enough to be in sports, I kind of just dropped books for several years. But I was really into like Tom Clancy and stuff. So I had a good idea of the kind of story structure I like, which is lots of stories that don't seem related. And then when they finally all tie together, it slaps you in the face with a good aha moment, right?
That's good writing. That's good
That is.
storyline. That's good development right there.
So one of the things, well, real quick, let me just mention one of our other sponsors, because I want to kind of turn directions here just a little bit.
Cool.
One of our great sponsors, especially right now, as people are looking for resources, and we'll get more into that here in just a moment, for prepping. We have all these new preppers that have come on board looking welcome, absolutely. Backwoods Home Magazine, great magazine, great resource. We keep every copy. Every time I'm thinking, I joke about it, I think about, okay, what is my new skill I'm going to work on? And then the next, publication has that very thing, an introductory or really good information. So Backwoods Home, go to our website, prepping2-0.com, click on the logo and use the digit 6 off, and you'll get $6 off your subscription, which is great. So Austin, what I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory here. So Glenn and I recently took a little trip through Yellowstone National Park, beautiful place.
Very cool.
And when I was a teenager, went through the same place, Mammoth Hot Springs. And I'm going to give you a reason why I'm going to ask this. Mammoth Hot Springs, when I went there as a teenager, was bubbling, boiling, the hot springs that Yellowstone is known for, and very, very active. When Glenn and I went back there a few months ago, and I'm like, oh, this is the coolest thing. It was dried up. And I've been hearing in the news, and I've been, it's one of these, you got to go way far down in the news cycle because the news is dominated by...
Because it's geology and people don't want to hear about it.
Nobody cares. The earthquake activity happening in Yellowstone and the possibility of a Yellowstone-centered earthquake that could be like...
Big and bad.
Big.
Yes.
Yeah, talk about that, because this is one of those things people are like, oh, yeah, there's going to be an EMP. And people think these things can't happen. I'm sitting here telling you, I kind of saw a small glimpse of it when I see these, a quarter square mile of Mammoth Hot Springs that used to bubble over, and you would feel the heat of them. They're gone. I mean, all they are now is mineral deposits on the ground. I mean, yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I didn't study Yellowstone too much specifically, but it's like the big super volcano that everyone worries about.
Yeah.
You remember when Doomsday Preppers first came out, and we all watched it and kind of smirked, but at the same time we're going, yeah, okay, there's a tip. There's something I should, There was one or two of those seasons where they had someone who's prepping for the Yellowstone super volcano. And if you ever go and study just how much Earth would rise into the sky and then travel across the jet stream, it would devastate, the entire northern hemisphere probably, as far as the ability to balance your soils for growing food, air quality, obviously, things like that. So I kind of addressed some of those issues in my fictional Mount Rainier going up, but the jet stream, this is a fact. So when Mount St. Helens went in 80, I think it was.
Yep. May 18th, 1980. Remember it well.
It took less than a day for them to do swipes over on the East Coast and find its ash, right? Mm-hmm. And it took less than 2 weeks for that ash to travel all the way around the world. And that really wasn't, I don't know, I'm not a geologist. I would have to Google it just like anyone else. But from my understanding, that pales in comparison to the super volcano that Yellowstone could become.
Yeah.
So,
wow. So what can people? So we have a couple minutes here, about 4 minutes here, so we can ask a semi-deep question here, Austin. Okay. So tell us what readers can learn from your books, because I do think that people look at natural disasters. I can't do anything about it.
And specifically, if I may add to that, a lot of people think, let's say you live in, I don't know, Connecticut. And maybe you're thinking, well, earthquakes, that's like a West Coast thing. That happens in Japan and Chile and Seattle. So why would I care? So what can people learn? I think I know your answer, but you're going to say it better than we can. Okay, and you're a guest, so you should talk. For
starters, I think most preppers know that no matter what the cause is, a good portion of the preparedness you're going to do is crosses all bounds, right? You need, like you guys love to say, layers of, multiple ways of doing your food, your water, your security, how it's stored, how it's prepared, all of that. So in each individual thing, you look at, okay, so what's unique to this scenario? Earthquake, volcano type stuff, we're obviously looking at securing your infrastructure so it doesn't get demolished or destroyed in the process. So for that, it comes down to everything. I mean, if a 9.0 is probably going to just shake buildings right off their foundations. But the bottom line is you don't necessarily have a 9.0. Maybe it's a 7.1, right? You just don't know. So go and bolt those high items, your water filters that are part of your well house and the pressure head and all that, bolt those things right to the well house. Your generators, making sure your buildings are wired to receive your generator. A lot of people don't realize that well pumps run on 220, most of them. So if you go and buy yourself a generator, particularly an older one, you got to make sure that it's going to be able to handle that load. And that's the only thing it can pump while you're running in 220, right? So as far as my books, in addition to normal preparedness stuff like so-and-so had, a year's worth of food stored up or whatever to provide for his family, I wrote into the story. I didn't want it to turn it into huge prepper fiction. And I just, so basically like there's a pair of guys that have a Silcock key. And then that polar opposites dynamic, the narcissistic doctor and the young sailor that are traveling together aren't very well prepared. And they come across these guys draining water out of the some of the last pressured water that's in the water pipes of a big commercial building, like a Safeway or something. And they're able to barter for some water because these guys had a Silcock key. And for those that don't know what that is, that's this little $7 or $8 tool you can buy that's just basically a plus, and it'll fit. Each part of the plus will fit onto a different size of recessed valve stem. So that's how people, like in commercial buildings, keep the homeless or whatever from coming and running their water all night and running up their bill, right? Mm-hmm. So and then the water bob in the bathtub. After that first small earthquake, the teaser one in chapter 1, the guy goes and fills up his bathtub. So my prepper tips for things like that are more or less written as little supporting elements of the plot.
Wow.
Versus, I guess the big one that kind of carries throughout the trilogy.
Let me stop you right there. Austin. The big one. We're gonna leave a teaser right there.
Teaser, big one. The big one is coming up on the other side of the break.
There you go. Don't go away, folks.
More Prepping 2.0 with authors Glenn Tate and Shelby Gallagher is coming right up. Hear all our previous shows free online at prepping2-0.com.
Shelby Gallagher here. We found that you need to layer your food preps.
Yeah, this is Glenn Tate here. A lot of times the hardest part of layering is the long-term foods. We love NuManna foods, which have a 25-year shelf life and are non-GMO. Also, organic meals are available.
NuManna comes in family-style portions and in bulk. This is not backpacking food. It's family meals that last for at least 25 years. The perfect freeze-dried part of your food layering.
You can get a sample of NuManna meals for $19.95 and see for yourself. You will be amazed.
Prepping 2.0 listeners get a 10% discount by entering the code PREP.
Go to NuManna.com or click the link on the Prepping 2.0 website.
Give it a try. NuManna.com. That is NuManna.com.
PrepperNet, where preppers unite. Looking to meet other like-minded people in your area? Looking to start your own prepper group? Already have a group? Join PrepperNet.com. PrepperNet has gathered the biggest names in the industry to help unite preppers everywhere. Join John Jacob Schmidt, Scott Hunt, Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy, Glenn Tate, Shelby Gallagher, Charlie Hogwood, Samuel Culper, Survivor Jane, Rick Austin, Franklin Horton, Ryan Mitchell, and Brian Duff. Our team is united. Check us out at PrepperNet.com. PrepperNet, where preppers unite. PrepperNet.com.
When the grid goes down, darkness will descend fast. Used to be there was nothing you could do about an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, or CME, coronal mass ejection. Now you can protect your electronics, protect your family, thanks to EMP Shield. EMP Shield invented a simple-to-install device that prevents whatever's connected to it from frying in an EMP or CME, and it costs just a few $100s. EMP Shield has been tested by independent laboratories and passed muster with the government, which has ordered lots of them. Google EMP Shield and see for yourself. And save some money. Get a $50 discount per device. Go to prepping2-0.com. Click on the Friends and Affiliates page, then click on the EMP Shield logo. At checkout, use coupon code PREPPING2.0. It's all one word.
Abe Lincoln here. In 1773, patriots broke the chains of British tyranny by throwing tea into Boston Harbor. On that day, Americans began drinking coffee. We celebrate that event daily here at Minutemen Coffee. All men are created equal. Coffee is not. Minutemen Coffee is roasted to perfection in small batches. Bold, smooth, and never bitter. Shipped to you fresh daily. Whole bean, ground, or our patented pods. www.MinutemenCoffee.com.
Prepping 2.0 is about that next level of prepping. One of the key 2.0 items to have is bulletproof body armor plates. I used to think body armor was too tactical for a regular guy like me, but it isn't. Give yourself, your family, and your team an unfair advantage when bullets are flying. Body armor used to be expensive and hard to get. Not anymore. KD Armor, and that stands for Come and Take It, makes solid and affordable body armor for normal people. Get body armor while you can. The clowns in Congress are trying to prohibit future sales. KD Armor is the place to get it. CATI Armor.com. Prepping 2.0 listeners get a 10% discount when you use the coupon code GRANT.
Now, more of Prepping 2.0 with authors Glenn Tate and Shelby Gallagher.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to segment 2 of Prepping 2.0. So glad to have you here. We've been talking with Austin Chambers, who is the author of the Cascadia Fallen Prepper novel series. Hey, Austin, before we continue, how can people learn more about your books and how to reach you?
Okay, so I do have a pair of websites. One thing I've learned is that some people like to be readers and some people like preparedness, and they don't always like both. So authораustinchambers.com if you're more interested in books and author stuff. And then cascadianpreparedness.com for my YouTube and preparedness stuff. Cascadian with an N, preparedness.
And those will all be in the show notes. When we were leaving segment 1, you said, and the big tip is, and we're going to get to that in just a moment, but before we do, I wanted to let folks know about New Manna freeze-dried foods. Comes in large bulk portions. This is not single-serving camping food, and it's New Manna, NUMANNA. And you go on to prepping2-0.com, go on to our Friends and Affiliates tab. You'll see their logo, and if you use the coupon code PREP, P-R-E-P, in lowercase, by the way, that's actually a requirement.
Yep,
the
we
lowercase.
found out.
We found that out. You'll get 10% off, and you should do that. So, Austin, what is the big tip?
So the big one, and this carries through all of the books, and it's going to have to be something I learn even more about when I do my spinoff series, is comms. I plug Amron, our good mutual friend,
Yes.
John Jacob Schmidt,
Yeah.
and Lady Liberty. Hey, you too, if you're listening,
Yeah.
God bless you for the work you're doing over there.
Amen.
Fighting for liberty.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and but 2 years ago, I think 2018 was the first time I'd gone to an expo there in northern Idaho, and my wife and I had become ham radio techs about 6 months before that, and we'd never even keyed up. They call it mic fright. So, because you make that milestone, you finally get that license, and you go, now what? Talking to him, I was inspired to come back home and buy an actual, like a base station. Now it's an ICOM. It's actually meant for cars or whatever, but it was something bigger and more powerful and more capable than the little handy talkies, right? And I started an Amron net here in my local area, and that just doing that really, it didn't really spark an interest. I think a lot like Glenn and maybe Shelby, I'm more interested in comms because I know it's a skill I need, not because I geek out on it. Right? So I'm still just a tech, and I only do the local 2 meter and 70 centimeter stuff. But it really drove home to me just how finite. Like I'll listen to the local ham clubs do their stuff, and one night they had a repeater that wasn't working right, and the guy running the net kept telling everyone, "All right, use the output frequency." And all these guys in his ham club were confused about why he's telling them to go to the output frequency for the rest of the net. It drove home the importance of practicing communications. So,
and having the
I
reference.
worked Amron nets into the books, and as the books progressed, my knowledge gained a little bit. And by the time toward the end, they were using digital and HF and stuff. That's something I'm really going to have to up my game on for the spinoff books. So.
Yeah, no, that's key. Everyone says it. Communications are priceless, and you're right. You sort of have to experience it to really understand it. I will never forget the first time the team, this is several years ago, we were doing small unit tactics, and for the first time had radios and had, push to talk things. And I'll just never, ever forget, instead of just kind of making it up as we go or using hand signals, now it was, you guys go here and you guys go there. And a light turned on. And so, you were saying with comms, I'm going to paraphrase what you said, and that was just do it and get down and do it. I'll say to guys, using comms on the small unit tactic level, just do it. And when also at the ham level, just do it. And just do it is a great segue into me asking you this. How hard was it to just decide, I'm going to be an author, write a bunch of books, publish them, produce audio books? How hard is this? Because we're asked this question a lot, and I'm always curious what the answer is. What was it, a big lift, or did it just flow?
Yeah, so I wrote an article recently, and I think I did a little 6-minute YouTube video on my author channel about the red pill versus the blue pill. And I tell people, and I don't ever remember which one's red and which one's blue from the Matrix, right? But I think the blue is the one where you want things to be the same or whichever. But writing the book and all that, it is challenging. It's something that becomes, okay, I'm committed. I'm going to do this. And for some people, they can write a book in 3 or 4 weeks, at least a first draft. And then others can do it in 6 months or a year. It becomes your second full-time job once you decide you want to try to sell that book.
Yes.
So that's where the red pill, blue pill is, hey, great on you. You beat 98% of people if you wrote a 100,000 word book, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone says they want to write a book, or almost everyone, but hardly anyone does. But then getting that thing beta read and getting a good cover made for it and all that's kind of like taking the pill. But then when you walk into Amazon and upload that thing and you start looking for how to make it sell, you've just entered the maze, the labyrinth, if you will. So it has become kind of a second full-time job. And it's only because I still carry a passion for writing. Some people paint, some people play guitar or sing. I can't do those things, but this is my version of art. So,
very cool.
It's nice to sell books, but in the end, I would still continue writing and handing them out for free because to me, it's all about the return on investment of your friends and people who read it come back to you and go, oh man, that was so awesome, right? So
exactly. It's the message. You're getting a message out and you're helping a lot of people prepare. Do you find that satisfying, as if I don't know the answer to that question?
That's exactly it. A lot of my initial beta readers were people I work with, and now they've all become paying fans. And some of them I work in a 14,000 employee environment. It's the second largest employer in the entire state. And so not everyone there thinks like me and politically or anything else, but I'm still friends with a lot of these people, right? And I have started converting a lot of people that may be more to the left side of the line. I'm not talking about leftists. I'm just talking about people that politically have always considered themselves Democrats. And they've started getting into preparedness. And the bottom line is I believe that the right to defend yourself, i.e., all the liberals that have been buying guns this year.
Yep.
That is the key to converting people's mindsets
Yes.
on all things government. Once you take away your right to defend your family, or once a person sees the value of that is, oh my gosh, now I want to defend the Second Amendment, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's the key to at least building bridges where you can have conversations with people. What do we love? We love our families. We want to defend them. And so that's been the big return for me with people I know who read the books. Obviously you like seeing strangers across the country buying it, but is when they go, wow, I've started preparing. How can I learn how to start doing the stuff you do? And that helps. So.
You mentioned being a shipyard worker in a very large place, and it sounds like some people know that you're a prepper fiction author. Have you found that there's a stigma or not to being a, quote, prepper author? I mean, is it something you let people know about, or do you wait till you know them well, or you just lay it out there because there's no stigma? I'm fascinated by this.
So there are times when I wish I hadn't told a soul there I'm writing a book.
Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah.
But you guys know as well as I that when you finish that first draft, you got to tell someone, right? Oh man, So, well, I've been with these people 50 hours a week, right? So I told my friends, and it kind of spread out a little bit. Once the cat's out of the bag, it's kind of out of the bag. And all of a sudden, I found out it wasn't just my co-managers and stuff. Now I've heard employees are out there buying these books, right? Guys
They
in
want to see if they're in
engineering
it.
that I know from the gun club, but I don't really work with, but they're in the engineering branches, started buying the books, right? So it started getting out there.
That's because people want to know if you
Yeah.
wrote them into the book. There's something about that. I found this, and I would consciously write people into the books that I did. By the way, you say when you write a draft of a book you want to tell somebody, try writing 10 and you can't talk to your wife about it. Oh, I'm sorry. That I shouldn't have said that. But do you find people, wondering if they're in the books, or then they're like, hey, when you write a next book, make me super cool?
Yeah, there is that for sure. So, I've heard you ding on yourself over that over the years. You'll try to downplay. Go, I'm not very creative, And I've met 2 or 3 of the guys that you've actually written about. I tried to purposely not do that as much, but there are certain characters in your life that you just got to put into a book.
Yep.
And so there's a couple from the gun range and one from the shipyard that I kind of based personas on, but more or less, what I've been doing is just paying homage to people with their name, usually a first name or a last name. There's only one guy I've ever done both a first and last name character on. That's in book 3, and that's a buddy of mine from Ireland. So, but yeah, that happened. That's kind of coincidental you asked that question because this week it was funny. Someone goes, hey, so is this guy in book 3 that gets kneecapped based on so-and-so? I go, how'd you get that? He goes, well, it kind of sounds like him in the description. I said, I gave a height and a weight. How did you get that? Well, I don't know. It just kind of sounds like him. I go, you're that big. It could have been you. He goes, oh, that ain't cool. Yeah. So, yeah, you don't like it when you're the one getting kneecapped, are you? But no, that's just it. So I gave an example to these people. They go, I said, look at Nick. How do you think Nick, the character Nick, got the question? And they all looked at my coworker named Nick. And they go, well, it's named after Nick. And I go, no, I ran a contest. A fan won the right to name 2 characters. He named them after his kids, right? So it's funny you asked that. Yeah, people start assuming that every character, even the ones that aren't tied to the shipyard plot, must be inspired by someone I know. And that's not true. The vast majority of them are just kind of made up in my head based on a need for the plot.
Yeah, or they're composites of people. That's like, somebody is half this and half that. And I know that Shelby and I, and Shelby more than me, used, and it's crazy out there, name generators. You should look it up. Just Google name generators, and it'll come up with a name, and even like a fake address and a fake persona, basically.
Yeah, I'm going to have to use that on the next series. Yep. I'm planning on a 7 to 8 book series, and I'm definitely going to need some more names. So
7 to 8 book series. We'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next series. What's up with that? That's awesome. That's an announcement.
I think it is.
So, Blades of Grass, and a lot of people. I had to Google this. I mean, I've always heard about the Blades of Grass remark from World War II. It turns out that that's kind of a myth. There's some basis of truth there, but it comes from a post-World War II report. But basically, there was this big urban legend about some Japanese admiral saying the reason we never invaded the mainland is because behind every blade of grass is an American with a gun. So knowing that these stories, this basically set up that the disasters are so largely impactful to both Amazon and Microsoft that it starts having effects on the internet and the world economy. And immediately China and Russia start manipulating for control. And these are things that I've built in all three of the existing books, just little narratives, right, that like start a chapter every now and then. So the narrative and the spinoff is going to be basically America trying to get this cartel problem under control in the non-Seattle cities in the West. And then it's going to be showing a little bit of Russia and China more or less duking it out over who gets the right to invade us.
Sounds like our headlines.
It leads into a China invasion of the mainland. So
it's like our headlines.
Sounds like an argument around the conference room in a Biden administration.
Yep.
Oh, I'm just kidding. I shouldn't even say that. Well, we'd like to switch gears a little bit. The episode before this, 112, was about our take on the year 2020, things we learned, things that we predicted correctly, things we were wrong about. So why don't you, Austin, give us your take on 2020? What did you learn in 2020? What surprised you? What were you 100% right about? I mean, it seems like everyone that's been alive this year in 2020 is going to have a story for the grandkids about, well, let me tell you, back in 2020. So what's your story to the grandkids about 2020?
For me, it was really a year of discovery. I think what surprised me, and it shouldn't have, was just how many people are sheep regarding the dissolving of their rights.
Yeah.
That's probably a little bit of normalcy bias on my part. For years, I've been saying, for 2 or 3 years, ever since it became obvious that no matter what the left and the media did, no matter what Trump did to prove that there was no Russian collusion, they were going to make it happen, right? So the further that went along, the more I realized, well, the elite, whatever you want to call them, it doesn't matter. The Illuminati, the Bilderbergs, there's a million names for it, but the ultra elite want him out of power. He was literally going to drain the swamp. And so I've been saying for a few years, just like you guys, it don't matter who wins. There's going to be a CW2 coming. It's just a matter of how fast it happens afterwards. So, the irony is I was the wacky conspiracy theorist around my coworkers started saying that for the last 4 years. All of a sudden, they all start. Ever since I started writing these books, then an earthquake happened somewhere or whatever. The chop zone went up in Seattle. Some of these non-prepper types look at me like I'm some sort of mystic guru with a crystal ball. It's like, no, I'm just a student of human behavior and history.
Exactly.
Spot
on.
Yeah. Personally, I learned I can do anything I want. Even poorly, I can do certain things. Like my YouTube videos aren't the greatest quality, but I put a humor into them, and I've learned some editing skills and stuff. And I kind of had to shelve that for a while when I went back to work full time. So for your listeners, I'm an asthmatic, and when COVID first came over here, there was a real concern. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. So the federal government allowed certain high-risk people to go home. I went home for 3 months, and instead of writing book 3, I started a YouTube channel.
Nice.
But when I went back to work, I ran out of time, right? So I don't put a whole lot into that. I'm going to have to start putting a few videos out here and there. But I guess for personal thing, I realized I am better prepared than I thought. I already owned an N95 mask. If the trucks had quit delivering food to the stores like we thought they would, and they slowed down quite drastically, but it eventually picked back up. Now here comes the winter crunch, right? Mm-hmm. But I told my coworkers I was leaving for what turned out to be 3 months. I said I feel good knowing that my family, including my older kids, if they had to come back and live at home, we could eat for months or maybe over a year, 4 or 5 adults, and be just fine. And that was a good feeling. So,
Yeah, very good feeling.
But for 2021, everyone, I see all these memes out there. Oh man, 2020 is almost over. And I keep thinking, what about the meme where 2020 was the last good year?
Yep.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, and as we're going to say next week, and we've already recorded it and you'll hear it next week, if 2021 is talking to 2020, 2021 would say, hold my beer.
Yep.
It's show-off time where it's going to be even bigger. Well, that's a great segue into what do you think is going to happen in 2021, or what should people be looking for? Not what's going to happen, because that's putting a lot of pressure on somebody to, predict the future. But tell us your thoughts about 2021 and what's coming.
Well, I know that there's a lot of people that there's some theories that there might be some minor martial law in order to reinstate credible elections. As far as I'm concerned, there's never going to be another credible election again. The hacking and the all the stuff behind it is just too great. But what happened today? Well, today.
And by the way, just so everybody knows,
there's a super strain of evolved COVID over in UK.
And it's now they're December 21st. It's December 21st when we're recording this, 2020. And that's an important timestamp so people can know. But keep going. Sorry to interrupt you. Especially
because when this thing goes to release, so much can happen in that time, right, nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty sure that people are lining up now to go get these shots without really knowing what it's going to do to their body. And all of a sudden, there's a new strain of COVID. So maybe next year, they keep saying the new normal for a reason. And everyone keeps going, I can't wait till these masks are gone. I said, they're not. So if the mask were to protect others, not yourself, and if there's always going to be symptomless carriers, then the only way that plays out logically is that masks will be required forever. Period. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to tell people this the entire year. And they go, well, that doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense. It's the only way it can play out, because otherwise the left at some point has to decide when life becomes less valuable. So mask reinforcement it's going to double down. There's going to be a second COVID vaccine coming out based on this stuff that's happening right now with these new strains. Obviously, if Biden and his guy, Biden gets in, and of course the tinfoil hat people thought he's going to get killed the first day he's in office. Well, no, but with his age and his obvious dementia issues, there is a good chance that even if he doesn't die, I think they're going to move to remove him from office, put in Kamala, who they want to be president, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of potential things that could happen politically there. I know that no one worries about cities burning if Biden gets into office.
I disagree. I think BLM, I don't think, and Antifa in particular, communists are not big fans of elections under the current system. They don't really care, and I think they're going to run amok. And I think part of it will be that the libs, the Bidens, the communists, whatever it is, I don't even know, are going to unleash them, and they want them to do it. But I'm starting to talk more than you, so I'm going to go ahead and listen.
Yeah, well, I guess my question there is, why have they paused then? Is that really just a winter pause to regroup?
Yeah, it's cold outside.
Obviously, we had the stuff that happened down in Oregon here, and again, for today's date, not the day this airs, the Capitol in Oregon had a riot, right? So, but I guess I consider your point that you're probably right on that, because I think you guys are a lot more brushed up on these things than I am. But I think that it would be more exponentiated if Trump were to somehow retain his seat.
Yeah, that would set things off. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that in regards to what happened in Oregon at the Capitol in Salem, Oregon. There was a quote riot today. Depending on what news source you look at, and if you met fellow author and writer Jeff Reynolds at the recent event we were at, that actually was conservatives showing up to have a rally so that they could go in the Capitol and observe the special session happening. They were not allowed in the building, and the state police showed up and spray
tear gas them. There were MRAPs. That's what you get when you're a conservative protester. But when you're Antifa, you get a sack lunch and, a pat on the head.
So
in an
that's
autonomous zone.
That's just I think that right there is and I think you'd agree with me too, Austin, that's just a prescription for what 2021 is going to look like in regards to laws.
That's exactly it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's another local guy up here that he's not an author, but he stands in for Rush Limbaugh as a radio host, and that's Todd Herman.
Yes.
I don't know. Todd Herman's show is awesome, and he has a saying, where there's a double standard, there's a hidden agenda.
That
is
wow.
perfect.
Well said.
I wish we could have stolen that. Austin, I want to, we have another minute or two before we wrap up and then go into the after show for patrons. Now, don't talk about this in substance because we're going to talk about it in the after show, but I wanted to let folks know that you're going to be talking about something very personal and very important in the after show, and it affects a lot of people. So I want to just flag that. I'll go ahead and just describe the topic.
And you got about a minute.
and then be sure and give folks your contact information. So what is the topic we're going to talk about in the after show?
The topic's going to be depression and the fact that there's a lot of them, right? There's seasonal stuff. There's people that get depressed over just the news, being inundated with bad news. But then there's clinical depression, things that people live with, both the mixture of nature and nurture. It's in their genes, and it's something they live with their whole life, and maybe they don't seek treatment.
And this includes you.
I recently started seeking treatment for it.
Exactly. Started seeking treatment, and we wanted to let folks know because that's something to think about. But I don't want to jump ahead to the after show and all of that. Well, Austin, how can folks get a hold of you and give out your YouTube channel and your website again, and make sure it's nice and slow? And if you are listening on a device that has a pause button, which would not include a radio station, you might want to hit pause, go get a paper and pencil or whatever. And so go ahead, Austin. How can folks get a hold of you?
All right. So I have a Austin Chambers reader page on Facebook, and I also have a Cascadian Preparedness, and that's Cascadian, like with an N on the word Cascadia. I didn't pick it; my fans did. But and I have a YouTube channel called Cascadian Preparedness, and so I run a preparedness blog and website on CascadianPreparedness.com, and then I also occasionally will do more life humor type blogs on AuthorAustinChambers.com. And then, of course, that's the social media presence for that, for Facebook and MeWe. I'm really putting my focus on MeWe now.
Very good.
And I'm trying to get through some hiccups on Parler.
Yep. Like we've all said, I think we've all agreed that we all need to digitally prepare and prepare other places besides the typical social media outlets. So, folks, final thought, always, every week, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. From Benjamin Franklin. Have a great week, everyone.
You've been listening to Prepping 2.0 with authors Glenn Tate and Shelby Gallagher. All the information you've heard today, including all our previous shows, is online at prepping2-0.com. Find out more about Glenn's books at 299days.com and Shelby's books at agreatstate.com. Until next time, be smart, be safe, and be prepared.